The Boba Fett movie, well, that's gone. And you got Grievous. What's he doing? He's running around in a video game somewhere. And questions from you guys. That's what this episode's really going to be about. We can't wait to talk to you. It's about to happen. It's Jedi Council time, and we are back talking Star Wars. It's fun talking Star Wars. That's what we're doing. And joining me on the council today, I'm going to start with Fyffe Diaz herself. Hello.
Hello.
Fyffe, how are you?
It's really great to be back here day after Halloween.
Did you go out last night?
I didn't. I actually did 2 shows last night over at Hyper RPG. We had this big fundraising drive. So yeah, it was really fun. I did 2 spooky shows and
Dress
then
up?
Yeah, I dressed as the characters that I was playing in these shows. So one of them is a Call of Cthulhu game that Joe Starr is running right now, and it's sort of Penny Dreadful-esque. So my characters actually have vampire, and then after that we did a Clue thing, and I was Mrs. White, but I've dressed like Madeline Kahn.
So 2 costume changes.
I had costume changes.
There you go.
Yep.
Too. I like that Joe Starr. He's a good dude. What do you got, Ken? What did you do last night?
First of all, you got the teases right, and that's great. And I lost $1.
Yeah.
You know what? I haven't dressed up since about 2009, so I stay inside, turn the lights off, and eat candy corn.
Cry or no cry?
No.
Oh, okay.
Me and the lady friend watched the finale to The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, and
which is great.
You like it?
I've not seen the first 9 episodes, so I had
you saw the finale.
She loved the show.
So you just
I had
figured
a
you're with her. He was like, I'll watch the finale because I'm never going to watch the rest of it.
Yes, interesting experience of, who is that guy?
Right.
Why is that ghost here?
And you get the shut up. This is why you should have been watching this. This is what happens anytime.
Oh, you were there.
No, my wife watches This Is Us, and I wind up doing that. I'm like, who is that person? She's like, you should be watching the series.
I did that too. Like, why is everyone crying?
Right. Who is that person? Are they related? Is this the past? What's happening?
But I am here.
Good. Well, it's nice to have you.
Thank
And
you.
it's nice to have you guys as we are in the day after Halloween, is November 1st. Congratulations to everybody for making it past Halloween. And now it is time to get to Star Wars movie news. Everything in the world of Star Wars that's happening in the movies, and we're going to talk about it. There's not a lot of stuff going on, to be completely honest. We're going to go through these topics. They are what they are. But last week, we really got a chance to talk to you. You had your questions, and you have the opportunity to do it today. So go to the live chat in YouTube. Ken will browse around in there. Hashtag Collider Live on Twitter. And also go to the Collider Jedi Council Facebook group. Leave your questions there, and that's where we'll get a majority of the topics today as we approach Star Wars Celebration. That's right. That's where we're approaching. That's when all the big news is going to start to happen, and we're aware of it. Let's get to the first story of what's happening in the world of movie news, Kenneth.
Well, there, Christianeth, I can confirm finally. Well, I can't confirm nothing, but we have finally received confirmation that the Boba Fett standalone movie, that definitely not happening. I mean, we've heard this song play on the radio before, but this finally came about because journalist Eric Weber was at a Black Panther Ryan Coogler press event, and Kathleen Kennedy hosted it. As she was leaving, Eric got to ask a few questions, and she said Boba Fett is 100% dead. So, hey, yeah, that sounds familiar.
We knew it was going to happen months ago. We knew it was dead from the second the report came out.
I also feel like were there people that were really like, oh man, I want to see a Boba Fett movie?
I think there were some, but I think that the majority of people were on the same, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I'm on that page.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think when it was first announced that it was even maybe going to be a thing, the only moment of hesitation that I had was that Boba Fett is definitely a character who is cool looking and sold toys, which is very much what Darth Maul was for Phantom Menace. And then I really liked where Darth Maul's storyline went when they brought him back. So I thought, I don't know, maybe it could add something interesting. But
well, I think what they could have done with it is the thing that I was always interested if they were going to do it at all, which I never really wanted. What I thought would be cool is where he ran was inside of the criminal underworld.
Sure.
Right? I think that if they would have went to an origin story, that would have been a huge mistake.
Agreed.
But going into the underworld, the other bounty hunters and things of that nature, and maybe never even showing his face, could have been interesting. But I also think with the creation and really development of the Mandalorian, that there's really no need to do it. And I also think they probably got really cold feet once Solo didn't do very well, because again, Solo, coming from people on this table, I thought it was fine. Ken really enjoyed it. I don't know where you stand.
I mostly liked it.
Fine, and that's my point. But it's one of those movies that wasn't like, oh, that was terrible, right?
No,
it wasn't Rocky V. And the point is that, like, so that's not what sunk it. It was the lack of interest.
Yeah.
Because people were saying, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? So what they think is, well, no one wants to see any more standalone movies, which Obi-Wan movie would have crushed.
Yeah.
Would have crushed. But they're pulling back on it, and they're going to take their shot, and they're going to go into these Benioff and Weiss movies. They're going to focus in on The Mandalorian. They're going to focus in on whatever the hell Ryan Johnson's doing, and that's really where they're going to focus on. And I think that might be the move right now. I still would like to see an Obi-Wan movie, but I understand the game plan.
Sure.
Ken?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The game plan, it should be changing. I have no problem with them always evolving what they're planning on doing and taking a look around whether or not, I love Solo. Some people doesn't matter. That's what you should do when you're running a business. We know it was seconds away. I'm joking, but it was almost announced in 2015 with Josh Trank. They were ready.
Oh, yeah.
We were in the audience at that panel when it was like the scuttlebutt of, Trank is sick. Right. He hurt his knee sliding into second base, and it was like, okay.
It does sound like a baseball player.
It does.
Trank's batting 275.
Batting second, Josh Trank.
Yeah. His exit velocity is great. That's
a great joke. That was really good.
Thank you. I'll be appearing in Phoenix in January with Mark Ellis. Actually, I will be. Details to come. But the Mandalorian series, without a doubt, I think you could almost call this the Boba Fett series. It does not mean that I think Boba Fett is even in it or is the Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is, I think Favreau has an interest in that. Yeah. And that's where they're focusing that kind of story now.
Well, they can cover all this stuff, too. They can cover the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like there was that series that they were supposed to do, the television series
right.
before Disney bought Lucasfilm that was going to be what Star Wars was. And Ronald Moore was going to be involved in it. And it was essentially going to be the Battlestar Galactica for Star Wars. And I think that you combine all that stuff, you get the development. The other thing, too, do not be surprised that there's mentions or even cameos by classic characters inside of this thing from where it lands, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that all this stuff combines. Now, whether or not it's actually seeing Boba Fett, learning about where he was, but essentially like what you're talking about, not even showing him, but what he was going to do, what the criminal underworld, working for Hutts, working for gangsters, the things that make Boba Fett interesting, that can still happen in The Mandalorian. So it makes sense. So we can just do that in the television series.
Because ultimately, what's interesting about it isn't Boba Fett. It's the world that he dwells within. And as you say, you don't actually need Boba Fett at all to do that. So
you don't. So I think that, and I don't think that there's a lot of, the one thing that, like you said in the beginning of this conversation, even if there were people who did want the movie, I haven't seen a lot of people going, no, this should have happened. When Obi-Wan was kind of like ignored, people were like, why aren't they doing this? Why is it not happening? There was certainly a lot of people who were just like, it's okay, let's focus on something new. But there were more people asking for that than there were for this.
And I actually have a little bit of a question here, because I also really would like to see an Obi-Wan film specifically with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. And I believe, quite honestly, that the reason people are so jazzed about that, we're so jazzed about that, hopefully maybe being a thing, is specifically because of the actor. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. So, that ties in. What he's able to do, that would tie in the prequels,
right,
and the original trilogy because of the character alone and where he is in the storyline where we believe it was going. But yeah, it would be great to see him come back. And I think that you're absolutely right. It has to do with Ewan McGregor wanting to do it. But the thing is, this is the difference with that movie. Ewan McGregor could still play Obi-Wan in 10 or 15 years from now. Because he's 46 years old or whatever he is. I mean, how old was Alec Guinness when he did?
Guinness was like 63 or 64.
Yeah, he was not. Yeah.
So I mean, you could do it.
Mark Hamill was older than him in The Last Jedi.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He could play. That's also one of the you don't have to rush. You could do the Obi-Wan movie whenever. I mean, I would like to see it next, but it's if people really want it down the line and they have the means to do it, or if you can get them for look what they're doing with Marvel. Now you have, the Falcon and
and Winter Soldier series. Yeah,
you've got the Loki series. You've got the Scarlet Witch, and they're 10 episodes or whatever miniseries. Hey man, let's do that with Obi-Wan. I'm cool. Let's get Ewan McGregor. Lock him down.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't hate that.
Totally be fine with that.
Right.
Totally be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to depend on the success of The Mandalorian as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, all right, what's next, if anything?
Next, if anything, nothing. Show's over. See you, Don Cuckoos, kids. Chips and salsa on me. this is, it's not much of a story, but it's interesting because it also marks just an anniversary. This week was the 6-year anniversary of the sale, the final sale, paper signed, $4.05 billion Lucasfilm to Disney. I remember right where it was. I was at my day job, so I was texting you. We were going on schmoes that night. Matt Mercer was the guest. We had to change the topic to talk about Lucasfilm and everything. Since then, that $4 billion sale, they've turned that profit in less than 6 years. So, hey, good move.
Well,
Good.
yeah.
Smart investment, Disney.
What a steal. What a steal at $4 billion.
Yeah,
what a steal it was because of the plan. Look, the plan that they did, because you look at it too, even if they don't do the movies once a year like they said they were going to, they already did, and they already made it back. Because take Solo out of the equation, I believe all the movies have come close to $1 billion, if not hit $1 billion. So they already did that, and that's 4 of them. So Last Jedi, close to it, right?
Yeah.
Force Awakens definitely did.
Yeah.
Rogue One did it.
Big money.
And then there's only 3 of them. What am I missing? I'm missing something.
And then Solo. Yeah,
Solo.
And Solo. So okay. So
and the
4
Ewok Adventures.
Right. So 3 out of the 4 hit. Plus all the we did that whole report last week and showed the books have made a lot of money. The games have made money. The comics have made money. So the merchandise has already made a lot of money. So they've made it was a great investment. And they did, and they're going to continue to make money off of that investment. So But I remember actually I was working. Mark and I were doing a show weekly with Machinima at the time.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and we did, and I had gotten I don't know where I got the news, but I remember I was driving. I call Ellis up and I go, "Whatever you're doing, stop. I'm coming to your place. I'm turning around. I'm not going home. We got to do a video." And you can still see the video on Schmoes. And it was just like we announced that it was coming. There's new movies coming. And we turned around, shot the video, and the rest was history.
Yeah. Where were you at?
I'm trying to think. I think that I was
in LA?
I was in LA.
Okay.
Yep, I was definitely in LA. But I'm trying to think if it was when I was on fun employment or if I was still at the day job that I hated. But the biggest thing I remember about it is that a girl who I knew from the improv community from taking classes and stuff down at UCB, she worked in business development at Disney. And there was a period of time where we just never saw Megan for, 6-8 months or something. And she basically, once this was announced, was like, "Hey, remember when nobody saw me for all that time? It's because I was working on this."
Right. And of course, lips are sealed. Imagine you're that person that leaks that out.
Was she the one that had to put the paper in front of George Lucas with the little "sign me" stickers?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, there were little gold stars next to all the places that I needed to sign.
And still gave every bit away to charity. Oh, that George.
It's so funny, though, when people always ask, what concert would you go to? If you can go back in time, which concert would you go? I want to be at that dinner with Iger and Lucas. I want to be at that dinner and listen to that because if you read How Star Wars Conquered the Universe.
Galaxy. Universe. Yes, you're right. You had it right. I apologize.
It's all right. Don't worry. Your coffee's almost done.
Yeah, it is.
Right. So we were sitting together. But reading that about how they sat together and the things, because initially Iger made the pitch and Lucas threw him off.
Yeah.
And he had to go think about it. And he came back because he always wanted Star Wars to go to Disney. It was always originally.
Captain EO, that era, and then Star Tours.
He took it to Disney before he took it to Fox.
Yeah.
And so he always wanted that. The book is fascinating, by the way. If you haven't read it, Star Wars.
Oh, I can't recommend that book enough.
Yeah. Have you
Our friend
read it?
Chris Taylor.
Oh, you
Chris Taylor.
Love it.
I absolutely would love it because I like all that sort of history stuff.
It's how he came up with the idea. It's the car crash that he was involved in.
And that's the thing is it's like me and the Beatles. It's like you've read every autobiography and biography there's to read about this band.
I can't watch enough documentaries on the Beatles.
Yeah,
though,
and it's like, and then you with Star Wars, you watch and everyone knows, and then Chris Taylor finds some things that are new and different pieces.
That's gonna be my
I want to see
Thanksgiving week.
You should absolutely get it.
I'm going to read it.
Love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk to you about it. I want you to do. But the other thing is, I want him to do a follow-up book now.
Every time I see Chris, I run into him at premieres. It's weird. He's one of those. You ever at conventions, you have someone that you're kind of magnetized to, and you don't even know.
Yeah.
Elevator
It's the
opens
accent.
up. Chris
And there
Taylor's
they are.
there. I'm like, Chris, I want the follow up for
He's
the
got it.
Disney
Well,
era.
especially now, is I want to. Yeah, right. The Disney era
Yeah.
alone, like the deal itself. What was going on in Lucasfilm during the stuff? What's the relationship with Lucas?
And we'll get the true story about that door and Harrison's ankle.
everything. You know that because he really got in there and learned. He learned so much. Chris Taylor, you cannot sing his praises enough for that book. Go and check out that book.
Follow
Future
him
Boy, right?
at Future Boy. Tell
Yeah.
him Jedi Council sent you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what's next?
Hey, update to the story we were talking about last week. I wouldn't call this a surprise, but it's always good to hear John Williams. Remember, he had to pull out a concert. He wasn't feeling good. There's old Johnny Williams.
Yeah.
And he is back on the mend, and our hearts, can stop pitter-pattering. It's going to be okay for now, but he's still going strong.
Oh.
All of 86 now?
86.
86. Wow.
86. He's almost 80.
And an update to a story that I shared last time I was on Collider Jedi Council about my friend's son wanting to go as John Williams for Halloween. I can confirm that he absolutely did.
Amazing. How old?
He's 4.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah, good pictures.
Yeah. Oh, I have like a prototype picture, but she
Okay.
promised to send me pictures today, which I will tweet out later so you guys can see. Because even the work in progress was pretty adorable.
That's really great. Did he have the whole?
Yep. He had a baton and an Oscar.
So good.
And
So good.
yeah.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
Great. Yeah, I am happy to hear. This is the same thing we said last week. You're gonna do. The only person who can tell John Williams what to do is John Williams, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if he can continue doing it, and he's going to be healthy, and he's going to continue to keep composing, great. I want him to just be healthy. So if he's healthy doing his work, and he's able to not rush himself, and he's able to not overwork himself, because it takes a lot out of you when you. Look, I am a lot younger than John Williams, and when we do one Schmodown event, by the end of it, I am
Tired.
exhausted. I can only imagine what he goes through and the stuff that he has to do. It's like a fraction.
Yeah.
So I would love to see him just live to 150 years old, composing Star Wars movies to the end of time. But let's see what happens.
That's impressed. That's impressed.
Is that it? Is everything?
That's
movie
it for the
news?
main news. I can
Nothing
start
more.
going through some questions before we get to canon. You make
Yeah,
the
go
call.
ahead. Go do that.
All right. This one, going back to The Mandalorian, I think this is interesting because I understand where he's coming from. Steve Folks at My Ghost World says, hey, Ken, a question for later. Well, later is now. It's never been said that The Mandalorian is about a bounty hunter per se. What if the Mandalorian character isn't really a bounty hunter, but has some other gig? And I bring this up because of the connection to Boba Fett, because our obsession with the criminal underworld, some people's obsession, which I have, we naturally go that way. But there could be something else at play.
I think he's 100% right. I don't think he's going to be a bounty hunter at all. He doesn't. Otherwise, it would have said in that synopsis that Favreau tweeted out. I think he says he's a lone gunslinger or whatever too. So that means that he could have. Maybe he doesn't want to be.
Yeah.
But maybe there's something else.
Maybe
There's
he
a road.
was a bounty hunter and he got
Whatever.
involved in some bad stuff, and he now is like living this other sort of
On the
vigilante
run.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see him as being almost more of like a Batman character, of like a sort of vigilante justice. That's sort of the way that I see it.
I'd be interested in that. It really runs up against Cobb Vance in the same time period, same kind of area, assuming that some of that stuff's on Tatooine. But I would like to see that dealt with.
Yeah.
Like, if the Mandalorian isn't Cobb Vanth, will Cobb Vanth be in it? I don't think all of it will be that connected, but that's something that comes to mind. And in the Facebook group, the Jedi Council Facebook group, one of the admins, Lauren Romo, has asked, could the Mandalorian be an ex-Imperial? And I kind of like that idea too.
I don't hate that.
We got
Well,
Singer from the Aftermath, an
I
ex-Imperial.
was going to say, and also, like, timeline-wise, that would make total sense that they could be ex-Imperial, because you think about the Imperial occupation on Mandalore, and also they had the Imperial Academy at Sundari, so absolutely could be.
Yeah, I think we'll see ex-Imperials and things of that nature, because I think that's the stuff that really worked in Aftermath and other books too. I don't think that the Mandalorian per se will be
Him,
No,
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be him. I like to see the fact that he's just this lone gunslinger from Mandalore.
Yeah.
Doing his thing, getting involved, almost like the Incredible Hulk in the TV series would get involved in these, just kind of wandering through the galaxy, getting through these missions.
Well, and I think that also frames it in such a nice way to really be able to explore a lot of different aspects of Star Wars, as you say, to go to lots of different planets and go to the Coruscant Underground and things like that.
Yeah, because we also want to root for the guy too, right? So but we're also in a time with television where you don't always have to root for the ultra good guy.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there are you look at Daredevil, he's got some demons, but for the most part he's a good guy. But you got the Punisher. You look at the Punisher. I mean, there's you go even darker. You go back to Walter White. You can root for bad guys, even though you don't necessarily want to, but there's something about them that makes you relate to them. I don't think he's going to be a bad guy, but I think that he'll have, I actually like the anti-hero element of it all, which could probably be where they're going to lean with it. But he'll also be introduced to people who are really good, and he'll be introduced to people that we'll really like that are the good guys, and then we'll meet the ultra villains. That's the thing we're not talking about yet.
Right.
Star Wars is really known, or you really respond to the big bads. Who are the bad guys? Who's the bad guy in The Mandalorian? Right. Who's the bad guy gonna be? That's to me, because even in the books, Vidian, you look at like a lot of who was the villain in the Solo book, which I thought was really good too. Last Shot.
Last Shot. The Daniel Jose Older's great book. The droid. The droid.
You see what I'm saying? But there's all the guy who controlled the droids.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so much that they do with these villains that I'm very curious of what kind of iconic villain they could create. And I also want to see story group wise. We haven't really heard from Pablo Hidalgo and those guys. You would just assume that they're going to be involved, but I don't know anymore if you can just assume. But I would like to see, the reason I asked that, can we then get more characters like Sinjir, like you mentioned, because he's around at that time? Do we see those events? I would love for them to tie in an event that happens in Aftermath some way or another, right? Like they tie an event in, and you just see our band of rebels, and you mention Snap Wexley inside of that, because he's part of the Aftermath trilogy, right? Yeah. So like, what's going on at that point? And I know it's afterwards to how much afterwards? 5 years?
It always confuses me, to be honest with you. Time, like, because sometimes they'll be like, it's 5 years after the start of the Galactic Civil War, so that's 2 years after Jedi.
Well, I was going to say, in the way that they count years in Star Wars is kind of
if you're not
as well.
Studying for a trivia contest, it sometimes slips through my brain. So it's around, I think, 2 years after the end of Jedi, which butts it up right against a lot of that Aftermath stuff. So that's why some of those characters, even if it's before the Battle of Jakku, I don't think it would be, but Mr. Bones and all those kind of characters, mentions would be okay.
Yeah, I want to get an interview with Filoni before he does the
series.
Before it airs.
Filoni has a handle on stuff, but it's like, how much does Filoni care about the rest of the canon? That's always, it's always his world, and does he sit and read the books? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't think he does.
No, I don't think he has time. Yeah. That cowboy hat takes a lot to get on.
But anything else, do you think?
No, I feel like we covered that pretty well.
What do you got? What's next?
This question here, we've talked about it before, but I'm going to bring it up here now because with some of the stuff we're talking about with the Boba Fett movie, the standalones, we know in this business release dates and all that kind of stuff are important. We are racing towards 2019, and we haven't heard yet. So Diego Higueros asks, do you think 2020 could be the first year since 2015, actually 2014, they will not see a new Star Wars film? It is getting to the point. Yeah. Rian Johnson's doing his horror movie, Instagramming those photos. Dan and Dave are wrapping up Game of Thrones, getting ready to launch season 8. The shooting's done, but they're in editing, post-production. What do you think?
It depends on The Mandalorian. As far as film goes, very well could not see one in 2020, but it really depends on The Mandalorian. I don't want them to do... The one thing I think would be a mistake if I would like to see them do with Mandalorian what they did with Rebels, and that is, if it debuts in October of 2019, then it's got to debut in October 2020. I don't like this Game of Thrones thing that they do sometimes. It's like, year and a half.
Skip this year.
Right. It's like 2 years. Oh, you know what? The next season's no. Stick to your October date, because then I don't care if I don't have a movie. If The Mandalorian season 1 is so great that my Star Wars is a 10-hour movie in 2020, I'm cool. Then what's my next movie in 2021? I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have Star Wars every year if they go to that plan, which I think is what they're going to do. So yes, the answer to that question is I do believe we're not going to have a movie in 2020. I think we're going to have The Mandalorian season 2 in 2020.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible that 2020 would be the first year that we wouldn't see a Star Wars film. And as you say, Kristian, there's so much other Star Wars content that's coming out. And even without The Mandalorian, if you really want more Star Wars, it is there. There's the comics and the books and the animated series and the video games. So you can definitely get your Star Wars fix. And I think almost it might be a service to the film franchise to take a year off so that people want movies again, because otherwise you run up against, I think, a little bit of what was going on with Solo. In addition to people being like, why do we need this movie? You're also throwing that movie into an oversaturated market. So I don't know.
I think I agree with a lot of that. The only difference with it is because with the Solo example, then I 100% agree with it. But the difference is that they announced the Benioff and Weiss thing that came out in 2020, and episode 9 delivers the way that we hope it will, and that's that fever pitch that everybody's back on board. And then 2020 delivers a brand new series of films that connects the universe in a way that Marvel could connect to their universe, right? Then the excitement could be, and it's not oversaturation anymore because it feels like a connectivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I agree with you in where it's like if you don't have the full-fledged plan and you don't know what's happening, take a break, go with your series that's out there. I think that people are going to want to, because not everybody I love reading the comics and the books, but not everybody likes to read everything. People want to watch, So I think that either give me the series, the live action series every year, which I think they're going to do, or give me a movie once a year. I think people will be fine with 2 years, but I'm not. Ken?
Yeah, no, look, I think, Chancellor, if you're watching this show now, you are excited at generally any new Star Wars thing coming across, whether or not it ends up living your expectations or not. You're not just a casual fan if you're watching a Star Wars show, right? So I understand where Em's coming from. I'm kind of like there, too. Like, even in, I'm greatly anticipating that Padme book or The Master and the Apprentice book.
Excited.
And that is it the same as a movie? No, it's not. I get that. But it's still new Star Wars. And so that's why I would personally not feel as much the loss of a movie in 2020. I would want one. I want one. Right. But I think unless they're doing something that we're not aware of, which, that Mos Eisley script, if you believe some stories, was really far down the line.
I heard a lot about that actually recently.
Yeah. So, not that they're going to be like, yoink, surprise, Blue Harvest is actually Return of the Mandalorian. But, it's more likely that we won't see one. So, but I'll be okay with it, with everything that's being presented to us.
All right. Well, let's go to canon real quick. So I was going to switch on over to a segment that we simply call Cody Hit the Music. What's the deal with canon? Canon, stuff that connects what Ken is talking about, books and comics and video games and things of that nature to the actual films themselves. Anything going on? I know we got Grievous running around doing some stuff.
Grievous is running around. First, I want to highlight this. I actually ordered this book, and I think it is on my porch waiting for me when I get home. It is Amy Ratcliffe's book, Women of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And that includes, look, Bazine Nattel's in it. We got...
Bazine Nattel is awesome.
Yeah, more than 70 characters in the book. Really looking forward to reading her stuff on Ray Sloan. I heard it's really good.
Who's the little murder bear on the
right? What's that? Princess Kanisa?
Oh, okay.
The Ewok?
Yeah.
Who was in Forces of Destiny, but also I think back in the Ewok Adventure cartoon days.
Yes.
Right.
So this is coming out. A lot of people already have this book, so it's really good. I like I said, just ordered it a little late, and it is some great art from 18 women illustrators. And an explanation of the character's history, and Amy really loves Star Wars. I don't know Amy personally, but we're always around events. She's moderating panels. She's just such a wonderful Star Wars fan. I don't know if you've
I've met Amy a number of times. Yeah, she's great. I'm really, really excited to read this book, and the fact that there is this shift in focus, I feel like recently, to really include women in Star Wars fandom and really highlight how important women are to the galaxy in Star Wars, which was always, George Lucas's intention. I mean, he said very specifically that, the rebellion was Leia's story. Yeah. And all of these other great women have contributed in so many ways. So
I think it's a very important book also for young girls.
Yeah, that's I think what I come back to is that if this book had existed when I was a kid, I would have read it cover to cover
Yeah.
multiple times over.
And my daughter reads like it's nobody's business. Like I have, it's a great problem to have, but my wife and I have to constantly say, "Stop reading and get dressed." Like it's a great problem to have, but it happens every day. Put the book down, which you don't say often in house. Nobody's phones or I said, put the book down. She will read this book 100 times over if I get it for her, and she'll learn all the characters in and out, and she'll realize that Star Wars is for everyone.
Yeah,
and that's it's an important thing. And you get people, and I'm sure there's some people now being idiots in the thing about SJW. That's all it is. No, it's not. The characters fit inside of it too. Now there are times that sometimes there are things that happen in society in general to where there's something that's being said, and everyone goes, "Well, that's what's being said, so we have to make sure we do that also." This is not the case
that's
for
not
this.
the case with
This is
Star
not the
Wars,
case.
yeah.
Now, Star Wars, sometimes it happens, but it's not the case with this
No.
book. This book is important. This book is something that. Now I don't know about the murder bear, but the two characters here. I don't know the character well enough, so I can't talk on it. But the two characters here are very, very strong characters. Now, you might just know Zine from the scene briefly in Force Awakens, but if you read her short story, she is a badass, and one of my favorite characters in the new canon. So to learn about her, to learn a bit more about Rey, I think it's a good thing, and it's definitely something that I'm going to show my daughter.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
A little bit of video game update. You teased it up top here. It's a couple things. We don't go too far in the video games here, but Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order potentially could be released by late 2019. And then, of course, General Grievous this week is part of the new round of updates. A lot of Clone Wars and prequel era stuff coming in, including Dooku, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. But Grievous is the first through the breach here. I have not had a chance to play it because
This is your weekend.
No, because I'm currently hunting bears and taking baths on Red Dead Redemption 2. Triangle to scrub your head. So I haven't had a chance to.
Do you love the game?
Red Dead Redemption 2 is it's a problem for me. Yeah,
It's that good.
I mean, I love the first one. If you love it, it's yes, it's it's a problem.
Okay, good.
It's a problem.
Well, that's the real reason you didn't go out last night.
No, I could not play. No,
Because you were
I was
Haunting
watching
of
that.
Hill
Yeah,
House.
I wanted to be home and playing the game.
I understand. Emma,
Yes.
so Grievous being around. First of all, Battlefront. For me, I played for the story. I think this is cool. They offer this type of stuff, but it doesn't excite me.
I'm more interested in story-driven video games. So
Yeah.
again, it's like I enjoy Battlefront, but I'm with you. I'm more into. I'm not so much into getting on the internet and having big battle royales.
Yeah,
with
you want more
people.
to drive the narrative.
Yeah.
see.
I like a good narrative in my video games.
Yes.
So yeah, actually, the Jedi Fallen Order game sounds potentially interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, it does. It does, and I think in playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and even the first one, a lot of those other games. And I'm not a huge gamer. You can find me on Twitch, and I'll play Fortnite really bad for you. But I'm not huge. But like when you see something like Red Dead Redemption 2, and I know in some of the Knights of the Old Republic games, the kind of the bigger stuff. I would love to have Star Wars like that. I just don't know if it's possible in this new age of canon. It'd be really tough. Because every little line of
I
dialogue,
know.
every little thing, you'd have to be like, where can you play? You have this kind of arena you have to stick
You
with.
could do the Old Republic because the sky's the limit.
That
'cause
is
still,
the place to do it.
It still is totally a gray area as of right now. Most stuff about the Old Republic is.
We'll see thousands of years ago.
Yeah,
Who knows
exactly.
that? What happened with the Romans? Make it up.
I don't really know, but but at the same time, like how thrilling is the idea of there being a really good narrative-driven Star Wars game that is canon. I mean, oh, what a good Star Wars fix that would
I've been
be.
craving it.
Yeah.
I've been craving it since they announced it. It's the one thing because you look at back in the day when it was Lucasfilm, was it LucasArts? LucasArts.
LucasArts.
When that was going on, there was games they were pumping out 1 or 2 a year or something along the lines too. And we haven't had that. We only had Battlefront 1 and 2 and a lot of mobile games. But we have not had the game yet. They haven't done an RPG. They haven't done this. And when it hits, and I like that they're taking their time because they want to put the right one out. But I am hungry for one of those. I'm sure my wife is thrilled they haven't come out. But I need it. I need that thing in my life badly. And Battlefront 1 and 2 are fine. No more Battlefront. Don't give me Battlefront 3 before you give me one that has a story.
Right.
That's what I need. And I like that they did that for 2. But
look, and Walt Williams and Mitch Dyer wrote that story, and I think did a great job of it. I love the character of Iden Versio.
Yes.
I love what's going on, and the connections to the comics, to Shattered Empire, to all those things, and Leia's comic and everything kind of, Aftermath, the Battle of Jakku. Like, it was really rewarding in that sense. It was short and all that kind of stuff, but that's not why you bought the ticket for Battlefront in general. Also, gaming has changed since when the first Battlefronts come out, 2004, 2005.
Oh, yeah.
Where that was like mind-blowing. Now people expect more, and you should expect more of these worlds that you can climb into. And
especially back in 2004, 2005, 2005 specifically, after Revenge of the Sith came out, there were no more movies. And so that was it. You could do whatever you wanted to do, and there was no more narrative to be told anymore, at least in the films.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So now it's still open-ended. There's other things that are going to happen. There are other things that could happen and should happen and won't happen, but you imagine that they could happen, and you have to take your time with it. So that's what I'm excited for. Emma seems to be excited also for it. And you guys, what do you want to see in regards to the video games? What do you hope happens down the line 2, 3, 4, 10 years from now in the world of Star Wars video games? All right, Ken, let's move on over.
All right.
You done with canon?
Yeah. With the Lego Star Wars All-Stars are out. I don't watch Freemaker Adventures. It's going to be in a similar style, and that does have a lot of fans there. So, So a couple questions. I got a live one, and I want to answer this again for. We get this a lot during the week. There's the All-Stars. Good job, Adam and Cody. John Egan writes this. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars movies and comics, but I've never read any of the books. What would be the best book to start with? Can you be Legends of Canon? We get this a lot, and we've answered this a lot, but I think we can update it and give us a chance to talk about those books a lot of people want to hear.
I think my personal opinion, as far as the one you should start with first, not necessarily because I think it's the best one, because I still think Lost Stars is the best book.
Yeah.
Same author, but I think Bloodline is the first one to read.
That is exactly what I was going to say, because I love Bloodline. And also, if you're really into the current Star Wars films, it is a time period that very directly affects what's going on. So
that's all. What I think Claudia Gray, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. I know some people think it's blasphemy. I think Timothy Zahn's 2 novels that he's done so far are okay. I think Claudia Gray is the new Zahn right now. She is the queen of Star Wars novels. She is the one to beat right now. She's the champ, if you will. And her stuff, what she does so well, especially in Bloodline, politics in Star Wars, when done well,
are so good.
Yeah, and she does that.
She does. She gets it
very well, and you learn about what Leia was going through during that time, and the reveal, like the dirty politics of revealing of the fact that she's Vader's kid, and the way that happens throughout the whole entire. It's brilliant, and you also the relationship between knowing what's happening with Ben Solo at the time, with Luke, that they're still he's still riding around with Luke out in the galaxy. It's a lot of fascinating stuff. So that's the one for sure. Now, I also recommend the Aftermath 2 out of the trilogy because the tricky part about that is that I really don't like the first one. I've told Chuck Wenning himself, I just don't like the first book at all. I think it doesn't feel like Star Wars. I think that it's written very strangely, but the reason why you have to read it is because the other 2 are so good, and you want to get set up with those characters. The first one's a struggle to get through. I didn't want to read 2 and 3 because I didn't like the first one so much, but I read 2 and 3. And also the other thing is they were pushing that one so hard when Lost Stars was just sitting on the shelf coming out at the same time. And that's the one they should have been pushing. However, Aftermath sets up these characters. You learn what happened right after the Battle of Endor. And then as you get to 2 and 3, it starts to shift into this other stuff that really plays into what's happening in the future of Star Wars. So I think Chuck Wenning actually did a fantastic job in 2 and 3. It's just unfortunately the first one's a struggle to get through. Ken?
I always go to Claudia Gray. I always recommend Lost Stars because I think, though it's YA, which is such a weird label to put on a lot of books, but some of the best Star Wars books are YA right now. It takes you through the events takes you through the original trilogy and then puts you in Jakku, and it's a sweeping romance story and all that kind of. It's got a lot of great elements of Star Wars. It also Claudia has this Claudia Gray verse, as my friend Joseph Scrimshaw coined that phrase, where she's got a lot of connected characters, things, and planets, including Harloff Minor. But Bloodline's a great place to start. and then go to Leia, Princess of Alderaan, but don't read Leia, Princess of Alderaan before you read Bloodline, because there's an emotional connection, this thing at the end that she does a wonderful job connecting.
Yeah.
And in Lost Stars, there's a scene that you see from Leia's point of view in Leia, Princess of Alderaan that was from Lost Stars. I say go there. I love the adaptations. Mur Lafferty's solo one was really good, but Jason Fry's Last Jedi, the Rogue One with what's his name, Alexander Freed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always say our buddy Andrew.
Yeah. His Alexander Freed, by the way, underrated.
Really
but underrated novel in the first Battlefront novel. Not a lot of people have read that.
That's the
book.
one I haven't read. I'm gonna order. I got to go back and read.
People
it.
have not read that book, and it's never talked about, and it's why he got Rogue One.
Yeah.
To write it is. There's a scene in that book, and I've talked about it many times, and I'll talk about it again. It similar to what Claudia Gray does, is it takes you through events that we know.
Yeah.
Battle of Hoth. The scene, when Vader and the stormtroopers crash
Imperial troops have entered the base. Imperial.
Now we don't see Vader in the movie up until they get to the Falcon, right?
Right.
Well, he's wrecking shop. He's
Rogue One in it.
Oh no.
I feel somebody read his book first and then suggested that Rogue One scene. I'm not even kidding. Like that is essentially what happens to what he does. They're terrified of him, and it's that scene. I'm sure Alexander Freed, when he saw Rogue One, was like, "Hey, wait a minute.
Give me $1."
Yeah, because it was like that happens in the book, and it happened like 2 or 3 years before Rogue One came out.
Yeah.
It's a war book. It's like
I haven't read that one.
Brothers.
I'm going to put it on my shelf to read now. I really do. Because his Rogue One adaptation is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And if you even kind of liked Rogue One, you dive in, because there's so many things, and I've talked about it before here. It's a bit of a broken record, but for the reveal that Cassian Andor was a separatist, that his family was separatists, and he was 6 years old fighting against Jedi, and that's why he didn't trust Sherrod Emway and Baze Malbus. It's like,
I wish I would have stayed in there.
Stay in there,
or be added in there.
And a lot more stuff with Jyn Erso, which ties into the book Rebel Rising by Beth Revis, which is another great YA book.
Catalyst is another one too.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say.
Catalyst.
If you like Rogue One at all and you have not read Catalyst, again, I think that the pairing of Catalyst and the Rogue One adaptation, I mean, it's like this beautiful, just like buffet of Star Wars characters and politics, and it's great.
It made me. Well, James Luceno's. Claudia Gray and James Luceno are my two favorite writers.
Yeah.
James Luceno's Darth Plagueis novel, which is not canon anymore.
It's not canon, but I would still suggest getting in there.
I mean, if you just want to read a Star Wars novel, you don't care about the canon stuff, then Plagueis and the Darth Bane trilogy are the ones that's what you read.
And Labyrinth of Evil, which is also right up to the events of Revenge of the Sith.
But anyway, that's all the stuff. Too.
Yeah.
And,
we could go on. Star Wars Book Club.
It's not a bad podcast.
No, it's not.
It's not a bad podcast. All right, what's next?
All right, we got Emma here, so it's a good time to talk some Rebels. All right, and Albert Rodriguez. I understand where Albert is coming from at A Rods Z21. He says, "Hey, I tried to get into Rebels, but just couldn't get past the first 4 episodes. Too Nickelodeon for me. At what point does the show get more serious? I really want to get into this." And I don't think that's not snark. That is something that I felt. If you go back to watch Jedi Alliance episodes with me and Mon Garrett, we're like, not for us right now.
Well, then talk to him. What turned you on?
I would say stick with it towards the end of season 1. There's some deaths and of no big characters, but Callus is a pretty serious character.
Yeah.
But then by season 2, you are off and running. The end of season 1, someone returns, and that leads into season 2.
Season 2 is the one. If you watch Albert
Albert.
If you watch the first episode of season 2. Or the first 2 episodes of season 2, after you've seen season 1, obviously. But if you watch it and you're not hooked, then you should bail.
Then that's fair.
Because the first 2 episodes of season 2, when we watched that at Star Wars Celebration, I mean, that's Star Wars. I mean, that's like, I wanted that as a movie.
And I totally agree with you on the season 2 thing. You're right, Ken. It does start to get more serious towards the end of season 1. They reintroduce some characters, and then they just really hit the ground running in season 2. Those first 2 episodes. And it's a villain, but they kill off a villain from the first season almost right away in a sort of unceremonious way, and it's all of a sudden you go, wow, there is some serious stuff that's happening in this.
Yeah.
And man, the finale of season 2 is so good.
Yeah.
Some of the best moments.
It really is.
What's your favorite season, Emma?
My favorite season? I think my favorite seasons are the odd ones, 2 and 4, because I really liked where they took things towards the end. I think that they introduced some really interesting concepts into canon by the end of season 4, and some things came back around from season. There was a big question at the end of season 2 that gets addressed in season 4, but you can't deny the emotional impact of where season 2 wraps up.
I don't think you can go wrong with 2, 3, or 4, but. And Albert, and a lot of people out there, each season has some ups and downs and things that aren't as serious, and AP5 singing in space, hello Stephen Stanton, all that kind of stuff. But
what season was that?
I think that was 3.
That was 3.
Yeah, that's not my favorite season.
But you look at the core, and season 3, I've been rewatching season 3, and the stuff with Sabine Wren, which gets dark.
Right. I do really like the stuff with her in season 3, but and again, I like the way that they continue to explore that in season 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then the Twin Suns episode. I mean, World Between Worlds from 4 is probably my favorite Rebels episode, which is weird because it is so different and it is so Mortis-like and everything, which is great. But that Twin Suns, that's some deep Star Wars canon there.
I would say 2, 4, 1, and 3 for me, and 4 and 1 are probably tied. I actually liked 1 a lot more than most, and I think that the only thing with 1, the first episode of season 1 is the animation is completely different.
It's very different.
Oh, and the Wookiees look terrible. But by the end of the season, you're like that. Those last 3 or 4 episodes are incredible.
I think too that it's pretty typical of a lot of TV series that it's very rare for the first episode of a TV show these days to be excellent.
Right.
I think of all of the series that I'm really into right now, and a lot of them really I found the beginning of season 1 to be entertaining, but I didn't really love it until towards the end.
Well, because you really start to find your investment in the characters.
That's exactly what it is.
Throughout it. And and so by the time you get to season 2, you're so locked in with Ezra and Kanan that and the whole crew that you care so much more each time certain little things happen. And that's, like you said, the beauty with every single show, depending on how they do it and how they develop. And that's why, again, I'm so excited for The Mandalorian. All right, what's next?
Well, let's talk about The Mandalorian. Let's have some fun here. Again, some of these things we talk about every now and then, but I love zeroing in on them when we can. Paul Reaper, who last week I think we gave him the nickname the Grim Reaper, and they did tweet out that he's not good at trivia, but he appreciates the name. He says, if The Mandalorian is well received, kind of we were talking about this earlier, these type of series seen as the future of the franchise, but he's asking, what would you want to see happen first? A young Palpatine series about he came to the dark side or a rise to power, or the Ahsoka Sabine-led series. I know your answer, but I also want to throw some other ones on the table. What do we think? You are going with the Ewoks.
Yes. Give me a Palpatine Sopranos type story, because that's what the Darth Plagueis novel was. It was a mafia story, and Lucino even confirmed that it was very mobster-esque, gangsters with the politics and the dirty politics, the murder behind it. Like it was like what's the House of Lies or whatever it is on the
House of Cards.
House of Cards. And it was that type of stuff. And I want to see that. I want to see Palpatine. I want to see the rise, because in the book how he was persuaded to join Plagueis and the things that happened, and Palpatine murdered his parents. It's like all these things that he did because Plagueis essentially kind of maneuvered him that particular way to do it. And I think that they could take stuff from that novel and make it an entire series. I think this is why I get encouraged by this 10 arc episode thing they're doing in Marvel. I really want Star Wars can take this and run with this. Give me a limited series on Palpatine. Are you kidding me? It's like, how do I knock down the doors and say, please, let's do this? That's the Ahsoka one, and it's like, if it's going to be animated, then I'm good with it. I don't know yet if that would work in live action.
I agree.
I don't think I necessarily am excited about that type of series.
I agree, and I love the characters of Ahsoka and Sabine so much, but I think that these ideas are shows for different audiences, and that a Palpatine just type of story sounds more exciting to me as an adult.
Yeah.
But I also see the benefit of an Ahsoka and Sabine kind of story. And I think that by virtue of the way that these characters came into existence, it isn't to say that they couldn't get into some... I mean, the animated series get pretty dark. Let's be real. There's plenty of death and destruction and emotional torment, but I do think that they need to sort of continue to exist in a youth-friendly sort of situation, whereas I think that a Palpatine series could be a real good like HBO kind of situation.
Well, they said they could do it for the streaming series, depending on how they do it. But and there's different places that things can air.
Yeah.
And the other question that I have that ties in all of this. Let's say that they do another animated series, because we already know that the Clone Wars, the wrap-up is going to be on the streaming series, right?
Yes.
So let's say that there's another animated series that they're developing. Are they going to go to Disney? Or are they going to just put it on it's still Disney, but are they going to put it on actual Disney, or are they going to put it on the streaming series?
Service. I don't know. It's a great question, because could there be more money to be made?
I genuinely don't know, because certainly with all of the live action stuff, that makes total sense that they're going to put it on their own streaming service, because why bother putting it on
HBO
network television?
Whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But with the animated stuff, you do kind of get into this sort of fuzzy area of a lot of your audience then are kids, and are people going to take the time to access and like setting parental controls or whatnot on the I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. You look, I mean, the argument can be made, look, well, Netflix does it.
Yeah,
Netflix
it's
has
true.
a ton of kids stuff that works really well. And
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
It just makes it a little bit more attractive to the family to say, okay, well, we got my son or my daughter's Star Wars is there as well.
But I also
too.
think that the Star Wars animated series have been some of the most well-received and successful stuff on Disney. So that's, I think, where you get into the, where's it going to go?
Yeah, it's like, but I think,
money.
Well, because the reason I bring that up too, because the answer to this question here is, if they took the Star Wars series off of Disney, could that channel survive? And the answer is, of course. Would it benefit putting it on streaming? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So the positive seems to weigh to put it on the streaming service, because it's not like people but I think you would leave Resistance on Disney, and you don't shift that over and lose your audience. It's already there. Right. But if you create new
series,
then you put it on the streaming series.
Yeah.
All right, what's next? Let's do two more.
Two more. Okay. Two more questions there. It means I got to find some good ones there. We got someone's talking about the Force here. You want to talk about the Force? All right. So Richard Allen.
Just talking to yourself at that point. Huh?
I am just talking to myself at this point. Richard Allen says here, do you think and this is inspired by the show Rule of Two with Mark Riley, Mark Fernandez. Do you think the Mandalorian will be Force sensitive? Which means is there possibilities? This is wild speculation here that he's a child of Obi-Wan. It's a T, and I don't think that's going to happen. Rey is a child of Mandalorian, something like that. And this leads to, can this series not have the Force in it? Now, by this time, Luke is back. Force is something you can talk about, but we know that kind of drifts away by the time the sequel trilogy starts. So, the Force in the Mandalorian, what do you think?
In the show?
Just starting with the question, do you think the Mandalorian could be Force sensitive?
I'll tell you that right now, I would hate that.
You'd hate it. Got it.
Yeah, and I don't know where the boys stood in that, but I would hate that if he was Force sensitive.
Right.
I think it makes it a lot more powerful if he's just this anti-hero going through the world, that maybe he discovers someone who happens to have the Force, or maybe there's people who, because the Force is out there, and whether or not Luke finds this person and makes him part of the Academy down the line, the new Academy, that's something to be desired as well too. There are also maybe some darker people who have found it. There's no way that Dave Filoni is involved in a series where there's no Force involved some way or another. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that I would assume that. But he's just he that's what he loves about Star Wars. You hear him talk about Dave Filoni. You hear him talk about the Force and the way that he was taught about the Force. He knows it inside and out, and I think that some way or another it will be. I don't really want to see the Mandalorian himself, depending on who he is. Maybe they introduce you, similar to what we were just talking about before, that you're so invested in this character down the line that they explain why. Then I'm okay with it. But as of right now, if it's just to do it, I kind of don't like it.
I totally agree. My inclination is no, I absolutely don't want this character specifically to be Force sensitive, unless, as you say, there is some explanation as to why he is. Maybe he doesn't even really understand that he is, and that's something that he discovers about himself as the series goes on. Then it's much more interesting to me. But I mean, in terms of the Force being present, of course it's going to be. And at this point, it's kind of out there in the world that it's a thing. I mean, they even, even in some of like the Claudia Gray books, like in Bloodline, like there are characters who specifically say to Leia, like, oh, aren't you like, do you ever regret that you like didn't pursue your Jedi training, essentially? So people know that it exists. So, and I think that in of itself is something that's going to be interesting to see, because we've mostly been dealing with, prequel era. There's a Jedi Council. Right. Everybody knows about the Force. Jedi are at large, versus the, as you said, even in the sequel series, it's kind of faded back. So seeing it where people are acknowledging that it is around, and Luke's putting together this whole academy, it's gonna be an interesting world. But as far as the character, nah, I don't think so.
Ken?
I am okay with no Force at all in The Mandalorian. I, am a fan of Solo, and there's not a lot of Force going on in there, because I think that is part of the Star Wars galaxy now. The Force, lightsabers, that image, that's definitely a key ingredient of Star Wars. So Filoni, absolutely right, understands that.
So you're okay with the character not having it?
I'm okay with the character not having Force, and I am okay with the Force not at all being in the series.
Okay.
I'm okay with that at all.
I'm okay with it not being in the series at all. I feel like it is going to be.
To your point, Filoni.
Exactly.
We at that Rebels finale event we were at, to hear him talk about what he's learned from George and what he understands the concept.
What I will say is that I do though want this to be a series that is not at all focused on Jedi. I would like for the Force to be peripherally involved and present.
And I would want that as well. Like, I'm not like anti-Force. I'm just like, I don't find myself missing it, but I've talked about.
The funny thing is, I do.
I am always. I want Rebels versus the Empire. That's my Star Wars.
That's what you've always loved about Star Wars.
And
I'm on the other side of it with the Force thing too, and I think that there's been a lack of it in new Star Wars for sure. Like if you look at Rogue One, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like Rogue
I don't know,
One.
because I'm more of a Rebels versus the Empire kind of person too. But I do like a little Force in there.
It's part of Star Wars.
Rogue One, you had Vader. Right, and then you kind of there was the tease with Jin's mother.
Jin's mother,
But for the most part, no Force. The Last Jedi, it was there with the Force Skype and with the scenes and stuff with the lightsabers. It was there, and essentially it was about Luke refining the Force. But for the most part, it was almost like the Force was like this dirty child that no one wanted to talk about, right? And in the Force Awakens, it certainly was there.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I just, and this is a lot of Star Wars fans too. I think that after Return of the Jedi and the way that it was set up, that I think a lot of fans thought that it was going to come back to where there's going to be all the Jedi again. There's going to be all that training happening. There's going to be so much of the Force and lightsabers, and we didn't get that. I'm not saying it was right or wrong, but I just mean that is something that I think that has let some fans to go, well, man, I want more of that. I think that Mandalorian doesn't have to be that platform where it is, but I don't want it to be ignored. And Rebels certainly did not ignore the Force. It embraced the Force. And I think that was some of the best stuff in Rebels. Yeah. And I think that they should have a couple episodes to where they find some people that do know the Force. And what's Luke doing? And are they going to try to even attempt to bring in Luke some way? Are they going to use, if they do bring in Luke, if they did, would they do Mark Hamill and have the de-aging stuff that they do for because it's going to be the most expensive thing that they've done any series, and it worked with Michael Douglas. So could you and Downey they almost got it with in Civil War. Was it
Civil War? That was what flashback was.
So I think I'd rather see him recast if they had Sebastian Stan do it. I think that it could work, but who knows? What do you think?
I'm here for Sebastian Stan. That's a great choice.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to the next one.
Final one?
Yeah,
final one. All right, we kind of ended where we started here. David Wilson at David Pockets 90 writes, "Hey, Collider Jedi Council. What do you think of George Lucas directing one last Star Wars film to close out his career? If so, what do you want that film to look like? We've seen him keep showing on these sets. We know he's close with Filoni. We know he's hanging around with Favreau with his spotlight on his phone. If that comes to pass, or you find out he's doing more writing or something in the series, I think fans would be happy at this point, right? Yeah.
I am of the opinion that I think I would like to see him maybe direct an episode of a TV show.
That's where I'm at, too.
Not necessarily another film. And I think that George Lucas actually would be the perfect person to direct an episode, bringing in what we were just discussing, which is what's going on with the Force in this time period.
I agree. And I think that his collaboration with Filoni, they work very well together. I think that him directing something that he didn't write, that he certainly has he'll have his notes and where that should go, and very similar to Emma was saying with the Force and whatever it might be, right?
Yeah, right.
Let him do that kind of stuff and direct one episode. I think it'll be very special for the fans, and it'll be a big PR thing too.
Yeah.
Episode 7, directed by George Lucas. Everybody tunes into it. A movie's tricky. A movie's tough, and especially the way that it's combining. Again, I know that it's just I think that The Mandalorian is going to change Star Wars. It's going to change. People are going to be conflicted. They're going to be like, I actually think I like the TV series more than I like the movies. But what do you think?
TV show would be good. I don't think he'll ever do a film.
No.
He's lost interest in that. I don't think, I can't speak for him, obviously, but I just think TV would be a good place.
You mean
to do it.
you can't look directly into the brain of George Lucas and speak exactly the words that he was going to say?
I bumped into him at the Grove one time. It's the most I've ever communicated with him, so yes.
All right. Well, that's it, everybody.
Yeah.
That's our thoughts on the situation. Let's start with, will George Lucas ever direct another episode? Would you want to see him direct an episode of The Mandalorian? Go ahead and comment. Tell us what you think. Make sure that you follow the Collider Jedi Council Facebook group. Going over there. Hashtag Collider Jedi Council. Get your questions on for next week. I'm really enjoying actually taking these questions from you guys. I think that it adds to a little bit more of exciting Star Wars topics than even the news do, to be completely honest with you. But again, what do you think about it? I'd like to I already talked to them for an hour. I'd like to thank our council for being with us today. Fyffe Diaz, where can they find you?
You can find me all over the internet, wherever Emma Fyffes are sold, at my name, Emma Fyffe.
And Mr. Ken Napzok, Kylo Ken.
Hey, follow me at Ken Napzok. That includes YouTube and Twitch. Watch me try to punch my horse on Red Dead Redemption 2.
All right, guys. Well, make sure you follow me at Kristian Harloff with Twitter and Instagram. Very excited to announce that the Movie Trivia Schmodown website goes live today. It's triviasd.com. You want to learn about all the profiles, all the records. You want to get the latest matches, the rankings, or just one big hub where all the matches live. So you guys want to learn about live events, all of it. It's going to be there. We have a lot of great writers coming to the site, and very excited that William Bibiani will be the managing editor of that site. A lot of cool things. So again, sign up for triviasd.com. I don't know if it's live just yet, but it will be. Sign up, and you'll get all the latest updates. triviasd.com. Thanks again, guys. We will see you next week. May the Force be with you, always.
Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode. You want to watch more? Then click up here. Or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. If you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.